Good day, folks. I like this heading by Pranab Dal Samta, Live from the War. There's a lot of stuff happening globally, a lot of wars, war possibilities, three major theaters. Obviously, one is happening in Europe, the other is the Middle East, and the big one, in my view and his view, also seems to be the Indo-Pacific. The United States has pivoted, right? Has it lost position in the Middle East? A lot of people say yes, a lot of Americans also say yes. But at the end of the day, I am not so sure. I think that there China will have its hands full, because as I will show to you, firstly, the contradictions between Saudi Arabia and Iran are not a long last. They don't create a platform for long lasting relationships. Similarly, because of the Shia Sunni, similarly mercantilism as far as China is concerned, or really the way they boss around everybody else, will run into the Arabs, which will just not sing well with the Arabs, the local population. But what does he say? Live from the war room. He says, three theaters are of specific interest: Indo-Pacific, West Asia, and Transatlantic. Europe in order of significance. Indo-Pacific. The US appears to have regained considerable ground after China had penetrated economies in this region and introduced dependencies that looked impossible to disentangle. However, Washington, through its political and military strength, has sought to provide both strategic comfort and support to resist China. The big one has been Japan and South Korea. The domestic challenges over the agreement remain. The two countries, along with the US, are currently involved in joint submarine drills. The other one was US-Australia, the AUKUS, US-Australia, which feeds into the Quad, of which India is a part. The other significant gain, as I pointed out earlier, for the US has been Philippines, right? Then we have West Asia, like I said, there, maybe not. And the final is transatlantic. But the EU as an institution remains against strengthening commercial ties with China. It seems Britain, Nordic and Baltic countries, Poland, etc. are with the US. China has played itself back in as competitor to the US, but not to a position of advantage. It has had to double down on the wolf warrior approach and agree to support financial support packages for smaller economies given to Biden's choice of World Bank presidential candidate, and reach out to other countries including Japan. For India, the message is clear. There may be short-term deals to consider and gain from, but the guard can't be lowered in an environment moving from unpredictable to volatile. That's the important part. And here's why mercantilism doesn't really sink, right? Chinese engineer held in Park faces blasphemy charge. Is he going to get the death sentence like most of the Hindus do? Then you have this where India has to worry. UK Park packed for supply of rockets to Ukraine. India could quite easily have been a part, but like I said, whatever it owes Russia, it's time to get off that horse. Jaishankar dials UAE and Saudi to discuss Sudan, so we need these two too. India monitors Chinese infra on Coco Islands. Watch our Andaman and Nicobar. This is where they've got their eyes on. I had always said that this is the part that should become part of the Quad, right? Airstrip aircraft hangar built by China spotted on Myanmar's island near Andamans. Then you have this Beijing making expansionist pitch in Indian Ocean region. Conventional warhead missile deterrent on anvil. This is the Indian side. The development trials of both Pralay and Nirbhay have been completed to satisfaction of missile developer DRDO. US warship sails to Taiwan Strait after China wraps up military exercise. And this is how domestic politics are playing in globally, right? Indian origin man arrested over hate crime at mosque in Ontario. So Hindu Muslim going to Ontario, right? NIA to take over probe into attack on Indian mission on London in March. Kind of strange, right? Need to lead world together with India and technology system, says US. And this is written by Prashant Jha, and this is Gina Raimondo. It says, the future will be made of two ecosystems of technology, one consistent with democratic values and the other not. And the United States wants India to be a partner in leading the world in the former. And this is important for India to note. We talked about important issues of the day: technology, AI, supply chains, moving towards decarbonization and working towards on renewables. But more than that, there was a palpable commitment in the room to take action beyond talk and move forward towards technology that is consistent with the shared values of democracy. And when you see that, and this is why you've got to remember why this is happening. Excited to build upon our long history in India, says Tim Cook. Finally, right? He used to be a Sinophile for the longest time, right? Cook lands in India to discuss a wider local menu with the government. And on the back of this employment, Foxconn looks to expand Chennai iPhone facility. And sharing, this is propulsion in the naval domain, right? Sharing info on maritime electric propulsion with India, UK CDS. You don't even understand how important electric and nuclear propulsion is. And here, the United Kingdom and the United States are in pole position. Russia is a poor second, right? And you see this supply chain moving, right? Mitsubishi Electric's first India AC plant to come up in Chennai. And remember this, all you big Russian guys and China guys, US retains position as India's biggest trading partner in FY23. China is at second position with trade, whatever. But when you hear this, F-35 out, India revs up 5th generation stealth jet non-stop. India doesn't have the credibility, India doesn't have the jet engines, India doesn't have the special steel, India doesn't have the avionics. Let's face the truth, folks. HAL is again leading us up a dreamland which it has never delivered ever since it got privatized, right? You have to take the F-35, you have to become the supply chain, and then maybe you can develop the 6th generation aircraft. And as EU lags, US tax breaks European clean tech companies. So apparently both the amount of money being spent on chips and on green tech is now. Even the Chinese companies are trying to slime into that gravy train. Where are the Indian companies? Indian companies need to be there. And when this comes about, you know it is Jaishankar's biggest BS being led down the garden path. India, Russia begin talks on Eurasian free trade deal. Give me a break, folks. What is Russia going to do? As it is, the rupee-ruble trade is in trouble. Because the Russians have no use for rupees. They don't buy diddly from India, right? We keep buying all that stuff. They are sending all a whole bunch of rupees. The other thing India should watch out is, whatever trades it does, never do a rupee renminbi trade, because otherwise renminbi will just devour the rupee and kill India completely. Well, I wish these guys knew economics. They probably don't. Listening to Macron. This is the important part, written by Rajamandal. Both Asia and Europe are divided in attitude towards US-China. Those Asian powers that can better navigate the current contradictions within the West are likely to benefit the most. He says Macron's remarks generated much outrage in the US and Europe, but are welcome in China. Then he says it's quite clear that Macron does not represent all of Europe. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, had a very different take on China than on Macron. The Central Europeans tend to trust the US more than France or Germany to defend their security interests, and that is the reality. If India's principal contradiction today is with China, Delhi can't bet on either Europe or Russia to balance Chinese power in Asia. India has long relied on Russia or the eastern part of Europe to produce a regional balance of power in Asia. It's not going to happen anymore. Fourth, does that mean Delhi should turn its back on Europe? On the contrary, Macron's China push underlines India's own possibilities. A Western Europe that follows the money in China could do the same to India. If Delhi can make it easy for European business to grow in India, it can get much strategic benefit out of the partnership with Brussels and individual European actors. Okay. Then he says, fifth, the inability or unwillingness of both Russia and Western Europe to balance China means India needs to work much more closely with the United States and Asian allies to secure a more favorable balance of power in the Indo-Pacific neighborhood. It is equally true that the strategic value of India will only go up for the US amidst the European reluctance to stand up to China's hegemonic ambitions. After all, few countries in Asia face more urgent and daunting challenges from China than India, and fewer Asian capitals have more political will to stand up to Beijing. But this is where we are waffling, and this is where we have to be careful. In Ukraine, India is right to point to the debilitating consequences of the war for the rest of the world. A shooting war between US, China over Taiwan might be more devastating and costly to the international system than the war in Ukraine. Macron's comment on China and Taiwan are also disappointing because they contradict the Chinese president's declared approach to the Indo-Pacific in the recent past. Paris was among the first European countries to claim an important role in the Indo-Pacific. For Asian countries like India at the receiving end of Chinese bullying on their borders, it will be tempting to conclude that the French resolve on China is wavering. But it's all about business, right, at the end of the day. And when that's the case, why would you want to spend or put all your money with the French? India sends 4 Rafales for French war games. This was the worst decision ever made by the Congress party, right? Debt crisis, key priority for India's G20 presidency, about to nail the Chinese. And what do we have here? He says capitalism, Sitaraman style. India's presidency of G20 has meant extra attention and extra responsibility to deliver solutions beyond lotus backdrops and bonus events. And the big result was this. Sri Lanka, life and death. India, France, Japan initiative crucial for Colombo. 3 cheers and Jai Hind. Hopefully the Sri Lankans will finally get off their high horse of a Chinese tilt and get real, folks. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.